I spent the whole day today trying to figure out whether or not the Senate will actually ban TikTok. To do this, I did a quick research on every single senator to figure out what their position was. And at the end of this analysis, you can see that 6 senators will vote no, 53 will vote yes, and 41 are unsure. And this roughly translates to 6% of them voting no, 41 who are unsure, and 53 who are yeses. But what did this actually mean, and how did I get this data? And I basically categorize these folks into 3 different categories. 1 being a yes on the ban, 2 being a no on the ban, and 3 being unsure. Now all the yeses are hard yeses, meaning that there's basically no way to change this person's position. And all the no's are also hard no's, meaning that it's pretty much going to be impossible to change their position. And unsures are anyone that I couldn't get an accurate gauge on because of lack of information or their lack of public statements. And I was able to determine a hard yes or a hard no based on what this person has said online, what newspaper articles have said about them, and also what their voting history looks like in the past. And I know this is by no means perfect, but it was one of the simplest ways to categorize these senators. For example, a hard yes would be someone like Michael Bennet, who said the sooner that we ban TikTok, the better.
I think we can do better than that as a nation. I think we can do better than that as a country, and the sooner we ban this, the better.
Based on the statement, you can pretty much assume that he's going to be a hard yes on the ban TikTok bill. Another hard yes would be someone like Marco Rubio, who said we must stop China from using TikTok against America. And it's basically going to be impossible to change these people's position, so I'm going to give them a hard yes. And what's really interesting is that a lot of these senators are pretty clear when it comes to their stance on TikTok, and you can see some of these examples here. And if I saw a tweet like this, it's pretty obvious who this person will vote for. On the other hand, we have people that are a hard no on the subject, for example, Rand Paul. For example, he has said that the TikTok ban makes absolutely no sense and he's not going to vote for it. Another senator would be Mike Lee from Utah, who publicly stated that he's against the current bill to ban TikTok. These senators are basically a hard no on the subject and there's going to be no way to change their position. I mean, they're all very vocal about not wanting to ban TikTok, but what surprises me is how small this minority of senators is. I mean, there's simply not a lot of them, and right now we only have 6 people in the Senate who will vote no on the bill. And this really confused me because there's a lot of newspaper outlets out there that makes it seem like this bill is uncertain. But looking at a number like this, or 6 votes or 6% of the Senate, doesn't make it seem uncertain at all. And lastly, we have a ton of people who are unsure about the proposed bill. For example, the office of Mike Crapo has not revealed any information about how the senator will vote on the TikTok bill. And this makes it basically impossible for me to determine whether he's a hard no or a hard yes on the subject. And on other examples such as Senator Tina Smith, I have no idea what her position is since there's not a lot of information online. And if I were TikTok, these uncertain people are the people who I would focus my attention on, especially with lobbying efforts in order to make sure that TikTok is not banned. Now, I basically spent the whole day today trying to compile this information, and it's by no means perfect. And I'm going to leave this Google Excel on the internet for anybody to view as well as to make edits. And the idea here is that we as a group will figure out whether the Senate will vote yes or no. And I haven't seen this type of analysis online yet. I feel like a lot of newspaper outlets are giving pretty general information, and I wanted to find something that was exact and sure. And as an ex-accountant, I love gathering information like this, and for more stories on Asia and businesses related to Asia, make sure to follow me for more. And I hope this can be one of the most comprehensive lists online on whether or not TikTok will be banned in the Senate. And I want to talk to you guys about a couple of trends that I noticed in the spreadsheet that's really interesting to me. For example, those who are voting no on the bill are half Democrat and half Republican. In fact, there's 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans on this list. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting this since I thought more Democrats would be voting no on the bill. And something else that's really fascinating is why these people are voting no in the first place. Currently, we really only have 6 hard no's when it comes to blocking this bill. And you can see all the no's here, and it includes people such as Rand Paul, Jon Tester, Mike Lee, and Ron Johnson. And a lot of the arguments here is that TikTok is just as bad as other big media companies. And it's also an infringement on the First Amendment. And this is basically the minority in the Senate, since many senators believe that national security risks outweigh freedom of speech. For example, more than 53 people in the Senate are more likely than not to vote for a yes on this bill. And most of these individuals are inherently tying this app to the Chinese Communist Party. And it's really not hard to spot these individuals simply because of what they say online. And for many of these hard yeses, it's pretty obvious since Senate members are pretty vocal, especially on Twitter. For example, John Kennedy has said that I wouldn't turn my back on the Chinese Communist Party if it were 2 days dead. I believe that the Chinese Communist regime can control TikTok and use it to spy the American people. And this makes it pretty obvious what his position is when it comes to voting for the bill. And the basic idea here is that many of these senators are afraid of the message that's being promoted on TikTok, and they feel like a ban is more than necessary. And this is not uncommon in the Senate, since roughly 53 of them have this sort of idea. Keep in mind that the Senate is made up of 100 people, and it takes 60 votes to pass a bill and to avoid any discussion. And this means that TikTok currently needs 34 more votes in order to block this bill. And to convince 34 of the 41 people left is pretty hard to accomplish. And one thing about many of these individuals who are still unsure about TikTok is that they tend to believe that TikTok is dangerous in one way or another. And although they don't directly say it, some of their past actions include banning TikTok at a local or governmental level. And the only reason I didn't include them as a hard yes is simply because they didn't directly state it online. And this basically means that TikTok will have an upwards battle when it comes to lobbying some of these folks, and many of these individuals will not even talk to TikTok at all. But one thing I do know is that they'll probably not sell TikTok to a US company. They have stated this in the past when Trump tried to force a fire sale of TikTok just a couple years ago. And after this bill passed, ByteDance only has 180 days to sell this division. And more likely than not, this will not happen, since it will set a precedence for more fire sales like this in the future. And a lot of senators will make the case that they simply want to make TikTok better or an American company, but that's not really what they're trying to do. They know that China is unlikely to sell TikTok, and they don't really care either way. The goal here for them is simply to get rid of TikTok and get rid of its influence, especially on the youth. And TikTok's price tag would be worth tens and billions of dollars, only reachable for some of the biggest corporations in the world. And companies like Google and Meta can't actually purchase TikTok since it would run into antitrust violations. And bills like this, which prevent foreign companies from taking over our media, is nothing new. In fact, laws like this have been passed in the past, but usually during wartime. For example, the Communication Act of 1934, Congress prohibited foreign individuals and companies from being major owners in public radio and TV stations. And this stemmed from national security concerns that raised during World War I. And measures like this are still not entirely new even in 2024. For example, just a couple years ago in 2021, the Nigerian government banned Twitter across the country. They said that Twitter spread misinformation and fake news in a way that could tear some countries apart. And the State Department even chastised the Nigerian government then, saying that the ability of Nigerians to report, gather, and disseminate information and opinions have no place in a democracy. And I think this is pretty ironic considering what we're doing to China today, but I guess this is a turbulent time and really a weird time in general. And one thing that's really interesting about this TikTok ban proposal is that it's more or less a divide between the young and the old. For example, most people who use TikTok are under the age of 40, and those who are over the age of 40 don't really have a good understanding of what the app is about. And you can see here that this correlates very well in terms of who actually favors the app and who doesn't. For example, back in 2021, 33% of TikTok users between 18 to 34 had a favorable opinion of the app. But when you move to the age group of 45 to 64, only 1 in 10 users had a favorable opinion of the app. For me, I mostly watch cat videos, get educational information, and really learn about random things. However, that's not what a lot of senators see. In fact, they see the platform as a way to disseminate misinformation. For example, the topic of Israel versus Palestine was a huge topic since it was largely debated on platforms like TikTok. And overall, it's likely that TikTok will be banned in the future. But I don't want you guys to give up hope entirely, because there are ways around this. For example, previous bans of TikTok in the past has faced resistance in the courts. After the Trump administration pushed a forced sale or ban of TikTok, 2 federal judges ruled that it was unconstitutional, and the same case might happen in the future. However, it seems like right now TikTok has a lot of work to do if it wants to stay alive in America. And let me know if you guys want more updates on this case in the future. I'm happy to do more research and provide more information. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. For more videos about Asia and businesses in Asia, make sure to follow me for more.